Right, guys, welcome. Hope everybody's well. It's Friday, 10 a.m., so slightly later. Let's obviously break down, macro wise, what has been happening, and obviously, again, we'll obviously, implement what we're looking at. I've got a bit of an example here of obviously how to use the tool, but let's obviously do what we do best and obviously break down everything. So today, boom, here we go. So we've had some Eurozone PMI come out as expected. No surprises here. Lagarde speaking, never interesting, so that's why I haven't really looked at it. And obviously PMI data here. So both euro and pound are kind of way behind the US at the moment, in regards to obviously stability. Inflation higher, so no kind of worries about them reducing interest rates or anything. So yeah, that kind of is what it is what it is. So yeah, let's wait and see what happens. We're going to have a relatively quiet afternoon. One thing that I've done, and obviously I'll explain it, I've split up the, smaller, lower time frame, trades. I've put them in another group because I personally do enjoy, I do enjoy, the more kind of slower way of trading. So, slightly different to normally. Not normally we'd be doing this at 8 a.m. So let's have a look, through obviously everything that's kind of happening here and why. We've got dollar, let's go on a 2 hour time frame. I don't want to go on a 5 minute. Dollar, bolting to the downside, open, gapped open, tested this 101. Remember, guys, on the DXY chart, you want every 500 marked out. I promise you, it respects to a T. So as you can see here, gapped up, tried to push this 101 and then it's died down. So dollar is, comfortably in a downtrend, now until probably until this area breaks. All right, or we might, if we come to like Tuesday, next week, and obviously this is still holding, then we might see dollar starting to creep to the upside here. But obviously outlook is the reason obviously dollar's taken a bit of a hit is the percentage chance of obviously them raising interest rates next time has decreased. So that's obviously why they have, yeah, taken a bit of a hit because, some of the big investors might not want to put their money there, long term because they're not going to get as much of a return. Yields still holding at this height. This is what's interesting. This is what's made this week very hard to trade. So we've got it happened about 3 or 4 weeks ago. We've got dollar and we've got yields completely out of kilter here. So they are not obviously trading how they normally would. If dollar is trading, if we look at the kind of lows it's trading at, which was the 18th of June. All right, we've then got, the 18th of June would be, where are we here? So, yields should be trading, if they're obviously in the, same delta, should be here. All right. But they're holding, they are holding. If you think we obviously opened the week up, and obviously bolted up. So on a weekly time frame, yields are up, but obviously, naturally, they've bolted up to this 4.5%, but they can't break. So this is what makes it tricky. And obviously, this is where kind of slightly higher time frame stuff, that's the stuff that we normally do, has been a lot harder because nothing's been respecting anything. We've got, stock market up, so there's a little bit of risk appetite, but not tons. And then, gold's still flying. Gold's made some ground up this week, as you can see. Still obviously trading inside last week's volume. But yeah, we'll wait and see, what happens here. If you think don't think we're going to break above this high. So volume on gold is probably pretty similar to the last week, but it'll be interesting to see if it can capitalize on this. So expectations for this afternoon, we're obviously going to lay our trades out after 1:30, but I'm not going to I'm not going to try and push anything. So. Right, a couple of things that I wanted to go through. Let's go through the trades that we documented this morning. So euro, if I go on this on a 15-minute time frame, I posted this when euro was about here. I have played everything a little bit safer. So what we were hoping for here was a die down into this area and then a push up. All right, we haven't had that. Markets have just done this, which is kind of expected. It's a US bank holiday. USD similar thing. So 6:30. Wanted this just to tail up, test this, and then obviously come to the downside. Obviously, yen. There's rumors they've not approved it that they have intervened in their currency. So expect this yen to kind of tail off a bit more. But I just was expecting this high to be tested here. And then we got gold. Now, gold really hurt me this morning. So if I go on this on a 15-minute time frame, look how close we were. Like that, we are talking. We were from triggering. We were probably 5 pips off, and that would have been beautiful. But I'm still happy. I'm going to take a positive from this, in regards to it has moved 250 pips in the correct way, so pretty happy. Can't really grumble now. One thing that I wanted to go through with you guys was how to utilize the macro tool here. All right, so I think one of the trades that we could have taken was obviously this one here. All right, so price was before I've marked these out. All right, I marked these out around here. Right, price was here. Yeah. All right, we've the tool. All right, has marked these areas out. Yeah. All right. And so if I was to show you, if I get off of this, all right, all the area, I changed this round slightly to make it very, very easy. All right. So these were the areas here. All right. Bullish. You've got all of these areas. So 6912, 6890. I'm going to do a better video on this a bit later. 69339 and then 6950. All right. So you can then mark these areas on. All right. Now, using the intelligence tool, all right, that's going to give you the outlook of, is it bullish, bearish? All right, outlook's now kind of changed, slightly, but this morning was green, 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 green. All right, so we were 95% in the other direction. All right, so then going back onto the macro report, and obviously I haven't regenerated it, but going back on the macro report this morning for all of these pairs, all right, you're then looking to buy, all right, and it's giving you levels of where to buy from and where to buy to. So obviously this would have been a great trade here, all right, taking it up, potentially, up to obviously this area. However, we would have wanted to take some profit in and about this, zone here. Now, I'm just obviously explaining to you because, all these are obviously pre-written or not pre-written. They're obviously driven from the tool. A lot of information into it that I would be looking out for. Did the same here, for obviously GBP USD, so looking to buy. Yep, you could have done something like this, and then potentially your TP1, 2, 3, whatever, so, and again, same thing. We're obviously waiting for this break. All right, if we were to go on this now, it would, recommend to us that GBP USD is potentially a bit bearish, so you might be waiting for a break here, and then As soon as you had that break, it might be that we're looking to take it down into this level here, or potentially this one here. So I'm really trying to help everyone, so that if you miss the trades in the morning, you can then hop on this tool, generate your report. So for example, right now, and let's just go through this quite quickly. Um, let's do the pair intelligence. Let's do a trade that we wouldn't normally do. So let's do euro. Yeah. All right. So we're going to do euro. Right. Euro still a nice bullish outlook here. Yeah. All right. So, we're happy, 95% bullish here. So we're going to ideally be looking to buy. All right. You come off here, wait for obviously the, macro report to be generated. While it's loading, let me clean off this. All right. Because we're not going to trigger any of these, now. Um, so, we're going to obviously be waiting for this to generate, which hopefully won't be too long. No, normally it takes less than a minutes. I've put so much information in that it's let me restart and then I'll regenerate it. Hopefully, might be a bit quicker. So that's our goal here is going to be to read through what is happening. Mark everything up, and then obviously go from the there. But I'm going to record a really good video for everyone today. But yeah, so I'd probably be looking to cancel my potential triggers from the this morning, and then we'll obviously go again this afternoon. Even this one here, so USD JPY, I posted this here. All right, so look how well this level was pre-drawn on. All right, where's it respected here? All right, that goes to show how accurate it is. But I'm not sure why it's taken so long. It might be my internet. Hopefully, it generates any minute. Um, so yeah, it's really, really accurate here. Main thing is obviously utilizing it in ways that obviously we can. There we go. Right. So if we look at it, good conditions, it's recommending USD JPY, what to watch out for, gold, there we go, bullish. So if we were to go on Euro USD here, the euro is fighting an uphill battle. The Fed is hawkish and expected to stay higher for longer, while the ECB is trapped between persistent inflation and weak growth. This 135 basis point rate gap favors the dollar and explains why Euro USD has struggled to rally despite modest Eurozone data. So what I would recommend, right, is you copy this, right? Paste it on your chart on your Euro USD, right? And obviously, this is if you want to, start to try and obviously take a few of your own trades here. All right, so we might want to do. So then you just mark these levels on here. All right, really, really easy. And obviously I'm trying to help everyone from one understanding how how macros work, all right, and then two, understanding how 1485 405. There we go. 1462. Have I done 1462? No, I haven't. 1462. 1462. There we go. Right. So something like that. 1485. There we go. 1485. 1462. There we go. All right. And so it will give you these levels here that obviously you can trade off. All right. So euro looking to buy. But obviously, there are different ways depending on how you want to trade. So it might be you look for this one here, or it might be we look for something like this, where we're waiting for a price to come down here, and we're going to take it into this area here. What we can also monitor, and obviously, I wanted to give everyone plenty of options here because we do have lots of different types of personalities, so it might be that you want to take a trade, you're waiting for something like this, so it might be that you want to take a trade which breaks above here, holds, and then continues, or it might be that you want to then there's only these trades here which I will be looking for, and obviously there's always options whatever you are trading. But obviously, if you had something like this where price is doing this, you might then want to just take this trade down into this area. All right. So this is how you can really utilize the the tool as much as you can. Now, then we go through a few of these questions here. Uh, Back to the office. Let's start cooking. I hope we're going to stay trading intraday. I'm not a big fan of lower time frames. Yep, that's obviously my goal. So I'd split it all up because I genuinely had about probably 70% liked it, 30% didn't like it. I'm probably erring towards the 30%, because I much, rather have a, slower, controlled approach and obviously build stuff up. But you know what? I'd rather if, I can see the appeal of it because if you struggle with, holding stop losses, all right, then smaller time frames are going to help, because you're not exposing too much risk. All right. Alex Lagarde is so boring. Yep, very, very true. But I like that your data is mostly on point. What needs to happen to break 105, 100 to the downside? What yields need to do? So I would be very surprised if anything happens today. All right. So what I'm expecting today is yields to stay within this range here. Dollar to kind of potentially come down and tap 100 for 500. Remember there's no the dollar being traded here. So yeah, I don't think a lot is gonna happen. I'm gonna predict today doing something like this. All right, but very slow. So just be aware of that. Do you have some good sources to dive deeper into the rabbit hole of learning macros? Like, come on, I've put everything here, right? Everything's here. There's so much data here. You can even ask it questions, right? That's why I've built this because there isn't anything which breaks down, macros as clearly as obviously what I do. Greg, on your Euro example, if it gets up to the 144 level, we are looking for a rejection or breakthrough. What signals entry? So I would stick to 15 minutes. All right. So for example here, right? You might want, to like I showed you yesterday, a couple of um, tests, and then you could either do one of two things depending on how aggressive you want to be. You either enter as soon as it taps up and take on that risk, or if you get a candle a bit like this, you can enter after that. So it all depends on how aggressive you want to be. But like I'd said, today's gonna be, a lot lower time frame. It kind of is what it is. We can't grumble. But yeah, and in regards to breaking, you want liquidity to break this clean, yeah, and then potentially come back, retest, but I wouldn't go any lower than the 15, minute. So yeah. Ahmed, what do you think of BTC? Sure, let's have a look at it. So BTC, I mean, you've only got to look at the dollar here. Dollar is tanking. However, Bitcoin, crypto is a bit, a bit negative. What you've got to look into regards to crypto at the moment is you've always got to think of it. It's a hype driven asset, all right. It's hype driven. When Bitcoin's flying, it's on the side of every bus. It's on the the walls at the London tube stations. It's everywhere. All right, but right now, either not very many people are speaking about it, or it's kind of been being spoken about in a negative way. But I do think, however, we've obviously had this whole SpaceX, thing. I haven't even checked it. I did buy in a couple of weeks ago, so I bought in down here pretty happy. But I'm holding this, long term. So yeah, I bought in about 152, I think. So pretty happy. Yeah, so we've obviously had all of this, but I do think it's got potential to pump. I do not pump huge, but I do think potentially we've got two areas it might target potentially one six seven and then 165. But I don't know. I can't write off. I've heard some crazy calls. I've heard like 145. So yeah, it's a bit of a strange one. Uh, Camco, Dan, you make trading much easier for us and help us understand the market better. No problem at all. That is why I am here, because I really want everyone to understand it. All right. Thank you, boss. Greg, the new IO channel we can see the entries you're putting in. What about the others? What is the source of those? So that's me a bit like what I was doing yesterday. Just me intraday trading, or probably more like scalping. So some of you guys would rather have that dopamine hit of trade, trade, trade. However, what you've got to accept is, it might be that you've got a hold really, so it might be that if we take 10 trades, we might have two wins, three losses, but obviously it is, and then another win, and then another, loss, that'd be seven, eight, another loss, nine, and then 10. All right. So we only need to win half of these and we've smashed it as long as you keep these, small. Will you make this possibility to access and use this software? Yep, I've made it access. So drop me a message afterwards and I can send you the logins. I thought this was the channel from someone that was trying. No, no, it's not. So yeah, it's all us now, all us. So yeah, don't worry about that at all. So right, I'm going to end this here. I hope everyone has a great day, and yeah, that's smash it. We'll try and do as much as we can. Considering it's a bank holiday in the US, so stay patient, and yeah, let's smash it. Have a good one, team.